Okay, we're going to be learning the Rebbe's talks on Parshas Vayakhel Pekudai Hachodesh, Mevarchim Nissan, from the year Tafshin Chaf, which is 1960. Let me just bring it up. Here we go. Okay. Let's see. Here we go. Okay. So the Rebbe says like this. This is again Chodesh, which is this week, Parshas Hachodesh, from the year 1960, and the Shabbos we bless the month of Nissan. So the Rebbe says like Oidos with regard to Echad ben Nissan. So the first of Nissan this year will be on Sunday, Saturday night, Matzah Shabbos Sunday. That Oides Echad ben Nissan Shemizvarach b'Yom HaShabbos Kodesh Zeh, that we're blessing the month of Nissan this Shabbos, which is the Shabbos we bless the month of Nissan. So Shabbos Mevorchim HaChodesh Nissan Isa b'Mishnah. The Mishnah says like this in Rosh Hashanah: Be'echad ben Nissan Rosh Hashanah leMalachim. The first of Nissan is the new year for kings, meaning L'malchi Yisrael, Jewish kings. U'liregalim, and for holidays. Regel Shaboy Rosh Hashanah Liregalim. So, meaning to say that we're going to see in a second what it means, the new year for holidays. What are we meaning to understand? When do we start counting the first of the holidays? What's considered the first holiday? Of course, Pesach, and it's the new year for kings. Umevor b'Gemara, the Gemara teaches us that what does it mean? What's the significance to say that it's the new year for kings? What does that mean? How does that play out? So what's the halachic difference if it's when the new year of the king is? So the Rebbe says, quotes from the Mishnah that says, Mevar b'Gemara when it comes to documentations. So the documents, again, Barbara said that there could be some issues with the connection. If there's anything, please WhatsApp me. So it says like this: what's the significance of being the new year for kings? So he says lishtaris, for documentation. Melech sha'amad be'esrim v'tisha ba'adar. Let's say in theory a king became king on the 29th of Adar, meaning the last day of the month of Adar. So Kivin Shegia Echad ben Nissan, once the next day, it means the second day of his kingship, which is the first day of Nissan, because there's always 29 days in the month of Adar. Also, Leishani, he's already considered that he was a king for 1 year, and now he starts writing from the second year of my kingdom. We find in the prophets, it says, in the second year of the kingdom of the king so-and-so, such and such happened. So how do we start counting the second year? When does the first year end? The first year ends on the last day of Adar. So meaning to say, from the first day of Nisan starts another year. So the king starts his second year as king from, even if he was only a king in technically 1 day. And now we start counting the second year. That's the significance of the new year for kings. What does it mean for holidays? A person who makes a vow to bring a sacrifice to the temple. So the law is you're not allowed to bring it late. Baal ta'achar means don't be late in your obligations. When is it considered late? Rab Shimon, this is the opinion of Rab Shimon. The Tanya echad anoider. If a person makes a vow, kivan she'avra alav gimel golem over Baal ta'achar. There's two ways of figuring out when is a person considered late. One opinion is the opinion of the rabbis that no matter when you obligated yourself by making the vow, you have 3 holidays from that vow to make good of your obligation. So if let's say you did it right before Shavuot, so you do count Shavuot, Sukkot, Pesach. Before Pesach, you have to bring. Otherwise, after Pesach, you have transgressed the violation of being late on paying your obligation. And Rab Shimon says that's the opinion of the rabbi. So then there's no significance of when the holidays start. It's always 3 holidays. So, however, Rab Shimon says Gimmer Golem Kisidron v'Chag Matzos Tchila. It has to go in order. So if you made the vow before Shavuot, So you don't count Shavuot, you don't count Sukkot. You only start counting from Pesach, and then you have three more holidays. So Reb Shimon gives you technically more time. So we start counting from in order, and the order is starting from Pesach. So that's the significance that the first of Nissan is the Rosh Hashanah and the New Year for holidays. So the Rebbe says, "V'kivan she'ein halacha Reb Shimon," but the law is not according to Reb Shimon. The law is according to the rabbis. As any 3 holidays, if you late 3 holidays on your obligation, you have to pay it up. It doesn't make a difference in what order, when it happened. But if you made it an obligation, if you made a vow, you have up until 3 holidays to pay that vow, to bring that sacrifice. Is over b'bal ta'achar, then you transgress the violation of being late on your obligation. Nimsa. Shedivrei HaMishnah be'echad b'Nisan Rosh Hashanah l'regalim ein ali b'tilchasa. Turns out that that as far as the law is concerned, the significance of the first of Nisan being the new year for holidays is inapplicable, because as far as the law only counts any 3 holidays. The Rebbe says that we know the rule is that whenever the Mishnah says Reb Shimon, without telling us who this Reb Shimon is, because there's different Shimons in the times of the Mishnah. So Stam Reb Shimon is Reb Shimon, the son of Yochai, meaning the Rashbi. That he is the teacher of the secrets of Torah, meaning of the Kabbalistic teachings. So we could say, although the halacha, the law, in the outward law doesn't accept the opinion of Reb Shimon, but we have to assume that as far as the Pnimis Torah is concerned, as far as the secrets of Torah is concerned, there's a significance even till today to the concept of the new year for holidays. Okay. So the Rebbe doesn't explain what this means, because the Rosh Chodesh is this Saturday night, Sunday. So we have to understand, what does it mean to have a Rosh Hashanah for I believe it's then Rosh Hashanah for New Year's. What does it mean a new year? What does it mean that we call something a new year? We know we have the new year for the year, we have a new year for kings, new year for holidays, new year for the trees. So you do adik, why is it called the head of the year, not the beginning of the year? Not the beginning of the year. So the explanation given is when we say Rosh Hashanah, it's like the idea Rosh means the head, like the head of a person. It's not just that the head is the most important of the parts of the body. It's not just the most significant, but also more important than that, it is the part of the body that gives out all the energy to the body. The koyach of the person, the neshama's main place is in the brain, is in the head. So he says, not just that in the beginning, all the strength, all the life force of the body starts off in the head. Even throughout the person's life, he or she, where the body is circulating the energy, nevertheless, everything's dependent on the health of the head. It leads and guides a person and all the limbs of the person. Rosh Hashanah. That's the idea of called Rosh Hashanah. I mean, this is a famous teaching of Chassidus, of the Rebbe, that we don't say the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year means it's the beginning. So when do we know when's the year start? Starts now. But once we move past the beginning has nothing to do with the continuation of the year. By calling the first of the year the head of the year, we're on page 488. Calling the Rosh Hashanah the head of the year means to say that it gives life and vitality throughout the year. All the 358 lunar days of the year draw energy from the Rosh Hashanah that we're talking about. If we're talking about the Rosh Hashanah in Tishrei, we're talking about the Rosh Hashanah for the years. Rosh Hashanah Nissan is the Rosh Hashanah of Kings. The whole year is drawing energy from the concept of Rosh Hashanah of Kings, or the Rosh Hashanah of holidays. The reason we call it the head of the year, because it is the source that gives out that energy of what it is a Rosh Hashanah to throughout the year. The older days of the year, they get led, like a head leads the body. The mindset of Rosh Hashanah. That's why Rosh Hashanah is a very important time of the year. When a person is in Rosh Hashanah, so we and especially Rosh Hashanah at the beginning of the year, we're very careful what we say, and we pray and we say Tehillim. Why? Because the whole year is affected. It's not just a one-day story. The whole year of the energy of the year is affected by how we behave and how Rosh Hashanah gives guidance to the rest of the year. And now we're going back. So that the month of Nissan, it says Vayakhel Pekudai, the first of Nissan is Rosh Hashanah leMalachim, is the new year for kings. What does it mean, the new year for kings? So we said before that's a new year for Jewish kings. And the significance halachically is about documentation. When do we start counting the second year? No matter when the king became king, even if it's the 29th of Adar, the first of Nissan starts the king's second year of leadership, of rule. So the Rebbe says like this, Malachim, what does it mean kings? Malchi Yisrael, Jewish kings. The person may say, okay, so I opened up the Mishnah Rosh Hashanah, and it says that the Rosh Hashanah for kings is the first of Nissan, but what's that have to do with me? I'm not a king. So the Rebbe says, no, it has to do with every single Jew. We're all sons of kings, sons and daughters of kings. And because a son is like an extension of the father, if our father is a king, that extends to us. Because we're the children of kings. What does it mean, kings? Of Hashem. Hashem is king of all kings. Therefore, we have within us the tchuna, the character of kingship in every single Jew. I was listening to the radio here in Yerushalayim, the Jewish radio. I forget exactly what the halacha. He was bringing down a law with regard to a question between when we require to have a king or a high priest. The point was that because every Jew can be a king, therefore there's a significance to a certain law. I forget the details. I was just passing while I was driving the car. It's like this. Not only do we find the expression that all the Jewish people are children of kings, they're kings. So therefore, if the first of Nisan is the new year for kings, means that each one of us have a connection to that concept of the new year of kings. And like we said, Rosh means it gives energy for the whole month, for the whole year. So therefore, we have to draw energy for the concept of the new year of kings from the first of Nisan. Which, what does that mean? That in a way of Nissan and Hagashal Miteva, the Nissan represents the concept of miracles. And miracles means above the laws of nature. It means we have to intertwine the concept of a miraculous mindset with the idea of that this is the new year of kings. And because the new year of kings, and we're all children of kings, and we're also, the Rebbe says, we're all called kings and queens, therefore we have to take that energy in a miraculous way because it's the first of Nisan. Nisan comes from the word miracle. And this Rebbe says, the Mishnah says, that the Gemara tells us that this is only talking about the new year for the Jewish kings. But kings of the nations, they start from the first of Tishrei, because the nations are connected to nature, which is Tishrei. Nisan is connected to miracles. And therefore, because it's the new year of kings and we're all kings, so therefore our DNA is connected to the concept of miracles. The way the nations roll is through the laws of nature. It's only by the Jewish people that the first of Nisan, which is the new year of kings, is the concept of a miraculous existence. And the Rebbe doesn't explain what this means.
Like,
it's not just
Marty Taylor Green will walk past like the translating posters.
The Rebbe says for more details. What is the difference in avoda of the concept of somewhere more to say the energy of the month of Nisan versus the month of Tishrei? Shetishrei huzman hacharisha v'hazriya. And Tishrei we plow and we plant. V'Nisan huzman haktzira. And in the month of Nisan we harvest. We bring in we cut what from our labor. And this is why by the nations they start counting from the first of Tishrei. Because you have to start from when you start working, right? When you start preparing. You start counting from when you start plowing and working. The laws of nature is first you have to plow and plant, which is in Tishrei. Only then you could cut, you could harvest from your labor. When it comes to the Jewish people, our new year starts in Nisan. Meaning to say, before even Tishrei, before we even start planting and plowing, God gives us ready that you should already be able to harvest it before you even put in your labor. Of course, it doesn't mean a person doesn't have to put in avoda. You do an avoda in the month of Tishrei. This is a Kabbalistic concept that we know that there's a relationship, what's called Yisrusa Dilatata and Yisrusa Dilela. In most services, the way it works is if you do something, God responds, which is called Yisrusa Dilatata, initiating from below, and God responds to us. But when it comes to the Jewish people, it's not just that we start with Yisrusa Dilatata, we start with our labor, and God responds to us, but God initiates it by empowering us and giving us the energy and the want and the koach to actually go out there and do our avoda. That's called an Yisrusa Dilela, an awakening from above that inspires us to go do the avoda. That's why it's also brought down that one of, like we said, according to the opinion of Reb Shimon, and we said that's the way it must be Pnimis Torah, because Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, that the first of Nissan is not just a new year for kings, it's also a new year for holidays. Even though the halacha the significance of it doesn't apply to the halacha because it's applicable to the obligation of owning up to your vows. Nevertheless, Chag Pesach Nikra Aidei Anshe Knesset Zagadayla B'Shem Zman Cheresenu. When the members of the Great Assembly named the Chag Pesach, when in the tefillah and the prayer, what do we call it? The time of our liberation, Cheresenu is liberation. Because we know that Pesach is not just a thing that happened 3,000 plus years ago, that the Jewish people were redeemed physically from slavery in Egypt physically, but Pesach represents constantly, in the time of the holiday and throughout the year, the idea of a liberation from all obstacles and all negativity. Anything that's negative in our life, we could be liberated from the energy of Pesach. And this liberation, what happened on Pesach? The Jewish people didn't earn the liberation. The Jewish people were naked from mitzvahs. It says that God looked at the Jewish people and they had no mitzvahs. He had to quickly give them the blood of the Paschal lamb and the blood of milah, of circumcision, so they should at least have some sort of mitzvahs to go out of Mitzrayim. Meaning to say, they didn't earn the liberation. We talk about this in the Haggadah, in the story of Pesach. Meaning to say, if they didn't have any mitzvahs, means they didn't do any avodah, they didn't do any service. So the liberation didn't come because we earned the liberation. How did the liberation happen? God liberated us from above down without responding because we worked for our liberation. God liberated us because He wanted to liberate us. It's called milamayla lamata, like the idea of a person who harvests before they even plant. This is what it means, that Pesach is the new year, the concept of holidays. Because how did the Jewish people, a person may say, what do you mean, if Pesach is liberation, I have to earn my liberation? No, the first holiday is liberation. Well, the way things are by the Jewish people, first we get an inspiration. God initiates the relationship. He liberates us before, and then hopefully we start counting the Omer, we start working on ourselves. And from the holiday of Pesach, we come to the holiday of Shavuos. After God has liberated us on His own without us earning the liberation, it's not just again in Pesach. This happens in every situation in our life. When we're finding that we're in our own inner Mitzrayim, our own inner restraints, so from all negativity, God liberates us. So what do we do once we get liberated? We don't say thank you very much and move on. Right away, the Jewish people start to get ready for the receiving of the Torah, for the gift of Torah, for receiving the Torah, and to be able to receive the Torah. With all its inner ideas. Right away, when the Jewish people left Egypt, once God liberated them, again, without any effort on our part, then we start to work on ourselves to be able to receive the Torah. As God told Moses, when I take the Jewish people out of Egypt, you're going to come to the mountain and serve me. And even the idea that we should be able to serve God was we jumped over the system. And after Shavuos, we come to the holiday of the gathering. When we gather in all the harvest of the summer, is both in the spiritual sense, as it's brought down in Imre Binav, it's a physical time. That's when they gathered in the harvest. But the Rebbe explains, continues. So what's the idea? The idea is that the first of Nissan is the concept of miracles, the concept of liberation, the concept of above our avodah. The Rebbe says, however, this idea that we said, that the first of Nissan is the new year for holidays, that that's the way Reb Shimon says it, the inner secrets of Torah, we feel it. We feel how this is the beginning of our avoda, that our, so to say, of our existence. That we start off in a miraculous existence, we're inspired from above. However, the Rebbe says, Aval mitzad gali de Torah. But if we're looking at the revealed part of Torah, like the ruling is, but if we see the way things are in outwardly, the way Torah is connected to the world, the end of the day is that's not the ruling. The ruling is like the rabbis, that there's no significance. It's not necessarily a significance that we don't see it. The significance of Pesach being the first of the holidays. The Das Reb Shimon, the Rebbe says, according to the opinion of Reb Shimon, it's clear that when a person starts counting their obligation to have to fulfill their vows, it's only starting from Pesach. If a person their whole avoda is the avoda of Rashbi, I'm connected to the inner secrets of Torah. So then you're conscious that Pesach is the beginning of holidays. And what was the avoda of Reb Shimon? Reb Shimon was one of those who said you have to learn Torah all day, and work is going to get done. Rabbi Yishmael disagrees with Reb Shimon. Because when you study Torah properly, that's doing God's will. They didn't just give their heart and soul to God, their whole might. It's the highest level of giving to God. Therefore, they're conscious and aware of the concept of the Nisim, of the miraculous, that how things begin in the month of Nissan. Their whole existence in this world, people who roll with Reb Shimon, is in a way that everything comes from above. The Gemara tells us, many tried to do like Reb Shimon Bar Yochai and weren't successful. Because in order to be successful, you can't just subscribe to the concept. You have to believe in the concept. You have to trust in the concept that literally everything comes from God. Reb Shimon was totally, living in a world of Mashiach. There are a lot of people who try to subscribe to that, but they weren't really 100% committed. It didn't work for them. The fact is that the regular way is a person has to go out to work, like Rabbi Shmuel says. At least to have a little bit malach, a little bit of work, even if your Torah is going to be your main thing, but at least you can also dedicate time to work. But if you're going to have some sort of dependency on Teva nature, so you're not rolling, you're not living in such a way where everything is an inspiration from above. Sometimes you get tied down into the anxieties of the world. Like the Tanya teaches us. Sometimes a person is able to start serving God out of love, meaning totally dedicated. Sometimes it's fear. And sometimes a lower level of fear. What's the lower level of fear? You don't want to get punished. You want to make sure that God's going to bless you. You want to make sure that there's a good relationship. God gives, I give, right? That's coming from fear. This is all about when we're talking about holidays. At the beginning of holidays, the question is, if you're on the level of Reb Shimon, that you're conscious that everything starts on Nissan, you're totally given over 100%, and therefore you're everything from you is from above. Or if you're like most people, you have to be connected to worldly things. When we're talking about that the first of Nissan is the new year for kings, There's no disagreement. Everyone agrees that within the inner royalty of every Jew, that doesn't depend on a decision if you're going according to Reb Shimon or Rabbi Shmuel, if you're still connected to the world or not. The royalty within us, that's always connected to the first of Nissan. Because based on the inner dimension of the soul, everyone is a king, or ben melech, or a son of a king, or a daughter of a king. Therefore, the Rebbe says, there's two levels. What the Rebbe is basically saying in the Sicho is like this. The mission in Rosh Hashanah says that the first of Nissan, which is coming Saturday night, Sunday, is the new year for kings and the new year for holidays. If it's a new year for holidays, it's not so clear. There's a disagreement. And it depends on what kind of dedication you have. It means it depends a little bit on you. Are you able to subscribe to the level of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, to be totally given over with all your might to God? And then you're a person who also feels the connection to the beginning of holidays. Your beginning of your reality starts on Rosh Hashanah. Or you're kind of a little tied down to the world, and then you're not so much connected to the new year of holidays. Holidays is about zmanim, times. But the idea that it's a new year for kings, that inner part of you, that's the royalty within you, there's no consciousness or an anxiety that touches that part of you. That's secure, and therefore, according to all opinions, comes the first of Nissan, the royalty within you, that's the new year for kings. V'hine, the Rebbe continues, even though at the inner core of the soul. So now we're saying that everyone has an inner royalty within them. Sometimes we don't behave like kings or queens, right? We don't behave royal. Sometimes our mindset is the mindset of a slave. Evet Kanani, ve'evet Ivri. There's a Kanani, a non-Jewish servant and a Jewish servant. Ama Ivriya, a non-Jewish maidservant. Kamavur Baruch as the Chassidus explains, what does that mean? Or Pratis the Rebbe says in more detail. Yitachin, sometimes. So Yeshehudi b'mamad matzav shal v'knani. A person's mindset is not a mindset of a king, not a mindset of a prince or a princess, only the mindset of a servant. What's the definition of a servant? Evet Kanani. I don't want to be limited. I don't want to be told what to do. I want my freedom. What's freedom mean? I want to be able to behave like whatever I want. I want to be able to eat how I want. I want to be able to do what I want when I want it. No rules, no royalty. Therefore, a person who doesn't reveal within themselves their inner royalty, and you have the mindset of a slave, it could sometimes be you're so tied down to the mindset of a slave that you not only are you tied to the mindset of a slave, you forget and you give up consciously on your royalty. The Rebbe says, imagine this. It's a kol echad misrael. Every single Jew, when we talk about in the prayer of Yom Tov, and we say, you chose us from all the people. He's not talking about someone else. He chose someone else. He chose me. You elevated me from all languages. You should be to me a kingdom of priests and holy people. That's God's not talking to someone else. He's talking to you. It's not only in the time when the Jewish people are standing by the mountain or standing in the temple. This is at all times, even in the times of exile. Even if you're in the most dark place, right? These hostages were 50 feet under the ground. They're still 50 feet under the ground. But we hear the stories of those who came out. They still felt royal. They still davened. They still said Shema. They still said Kiddush. They weren't giving up on their royalty. Sometimes you have two darknesses, but darkness within a darkness. Dalit pam, that is 4 times dark. Not only are you tied down to the permissible klipa, negative forces of impurity. It's not only to one of the levels of the 3 levels of deep impurity. Your person can be tied down to all 4 levels of impurity. God says to the Jewish person says, I'm deep in the mud, in the spiritual mud. God says, I've not discussed it ever with the Jewish people. I still say and I still remain with what I say. Atem tiuli mamlechas kohanim goy kodesh. You're a people of royalty, a people of princes, a people of holiness. No one can take away, no matter what the situation is, the inner royalty of a person. And what does it mean to be a king? The definition of a king is you are in control. And you're free. You're not a slave. No one can tell you what to do. Yes, like the previous Rebbe's father said, you can hurt my body, you can't hurt my soul. And a Jewish person, naturally you're a king, and therefore you're not under the laws of nature. Nevertheless, even though that is who you are, but what does a person choose sometimes? Sometimes we choose the level of an Evet Kanani. We want to behave like a slave that wants to throw off the yoke of Torah. So the Rebbe says, Muchan hu levatel yonam lucha. The person says, I don't want to be a king. You chose me, I don't want to be chosen. I don't want to accept the yoke of Torah mitzvahs. So what do we say? The answer is, the Rebbe says, when a Jewish person says, I don't want to be a king. No, thank you for making me royal. So the Rebbe says, what do the Jewish people say, after the first exile? The Jewish people came to Yecheskel and they said, we're just like all the nations. Let's be like everyone else. Why do we have to be separate? Why do we have to be? You chose us from all the people. Not only do you give over, that nature should start ruling you, and the Rebbe says, if a person, what did Bar Kochva say? God, please don't interfere. So the Rebbe says over here, if a person throws off themselves the yoke, or so to say, the gift of royalty, it's not like you could just be Kachol going Beis Yisrael. You can say, okay, I'm going to be naturally successful like everyone else is naturally successful. No, you're not going to have that as well. My law says, Yehudi, the definition of a Jew is Shu Melech, you're a king. And if you're not a king, you're a slave. There's no middle. L'mayla me'olim, above the world. V'ilu kasher tzayni l'snak, if you say they're oilim b'derech heaven, if a person says, no, thank you. Let me be like Kachol going Beis Yisrael, like all the nations. I want to just let things be natural with me. I'm ready to give up my royalty. So then God says, sorry, nature wasn't given to you. Nature was given to the other nations. You are kings. If you're not ready to be king, you're not going to have it like everyone else. The non-Jewish nations have more of a control, a hold on the laws of nature. Not only if you're going to give up on your royalty, you won't have not royalty and you won't have even nature. Like Esav says. What did Esav say? Esav says, it's my world. He said to Yaakov, we made a deal. You gave me this world. There's no world that goes back to the you can't choose to be part of Esav's world. Okay, the Gemara says, Kedisa B'Zohar, like the Zohar teaches us, Shisrael nimshul leiv. The Jewish people are like a heart. Though the heart is one of the most important parts of the body, right? It's much more refined. You could stick your hand in mud, you could stick your foot in places. Other parts of your body could go into places, not your heart. Your heart has to be kept clean. Davar gas means something coarse the heart can't handle. Hakeva yechayil akos davar gas. Your intestines it can handle the most difficult foods. That's its whole point, to do that, to digest. A little drop of something that's not pure goes into the heart. You become severely sick. What your intestines can handle in abundance, you can handle in a drop. The heart can handle in a drop. Therefore, the Zohar says the Jewish people are like the heart. The heart has to do heart things. Your heart can't decide to become a part of the digestive system. And therefore, your whole existence is to be a king above nature. You can't decide to say, I want to be like the rest of the nations. No one's asking you. The Rebbe says this is what we spoke about in Purim, I guess that year, 1960. When a person tries to hide, doesn't want to identify with the idea that we say in Yom Tiv, you've chosen us from all the people. A person says, you know what? Maybe, how do I get rid of anti-Semitism? The Rebbe is dealing with anti-Semitism, is just stop calling myself the chosen people. That's not going to help, the Rebbe says. When you try to hide from your uniqueness, from the specialty of a Jewish people, it only brings on more anti-Semitism. We've seen this over the years. Germany was not religious like Russia or Poland, and that's where Nazis started. Goy b'tivoy son Yehudi. All right, this is going to be tough, but this is how it is. We're learning the Farbrengen as it is. The halacha says, according to Reb Shimon, that in general the nations hate Jews. We see anti-Semitism without any excuse. It's almost the nature that God made that Esav hates his brother Yaakov. The Rebbe says it's sociologically understood. Ki Yehudi melech. If a Jew is a king, of course, and Yaakov is the king, Esav hates the king. Why are you the king? The nature is the servant hates the king, his master. When the Jew says, I don't want to be a king, I want to be like everyone else, you want to hide the fact that God chose us amongst the people. It doesn't change. It's only an outward change. You don't have the ability to disown your royalty. So you haven't changed the fact that you're a king. So he says, because internally you remain a king, you stay a Jew and a king, and you're not going to be able to get rid of the hate, because the hate is about the essential greatness of you, and you're not in control of that. The more you're going to try to run away from your Judaism, your identity. The nations feel more the more you're trying to hide your identity, the Rebbe says, the more those who hate you recognize your identity. You're not going to change the fact that they hate you. The more you say, I want to be like everyone else, the prince says, we don't want you to be like us. Because the nations say, nature is our world. So the Gentile says, when the Jew wants to be like a Gentile, you want to say, you don't have nature, I have nature. I don't want to be part of miracles. I want to be kechol hagoyim. Please make room on this bench for me. Esav gets more hateful to Yaakov when he tries to behave like kechol hagoyim, like the other nations. This is what it says. The Medrash teaches us that halacha biyadua she'esav sonel Yaakov. It's a law. Esav hates Yaakov. That's what Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says. Medrash shaykh l'chelik hagad. We know that the Medrash is part of the God of Torah, not the halacha. If it's a Medrash, why does the Medrash quote the law? The Medrash more gives ideas. The idea is like this. The Torah, the laws of Torah make the existence of the world. The rules of the world run according to Torah, as Torah sees it. If the Torah decides something, that's the fact in the world. And if the Torah paskets, halacha, Esav sonel Yaakov, Esav hates Yaakov. There's no kind of manipulation or out-clevering the concept. You can't out-clever anti-Semitism. Lahastir satzmai, try to hide yourself. I'm not special. I'm like everyone else. It doesn't make a difference what someone else thinks. Torah says this is the way it is. The Jewish people are kings, and the Eved hates the king. That's the way it is. You're not going to outsmart anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is part of the DNA of creation. Therefore, the Rebbe says, what's the lesson that we can take from this? Shalav Ladas, you have to know. Shalach Shehi Shemetzias Olam Sein Yehudim. This is the Rebbe was talking very tough in 1960. The fact is, the world hates the Jewish people. It means when we try to sit there all day trying to figure out what did I do wrong, that all this insane anti-Semitism is out in the world, something for you to figure out. This is the way it is. V'kiven shekain, if that's the way it is, l'yachshiv she'asai mesatfila v'alimud. So the Rebbe says, what does it mean in our actual behavior? If a person realizes that this is the way it is, the Jewish people are above nature. They're b'nei malachim. There's the inner royalty within all of us. So therefore, if a person thinks, 1 second, I have to be like everyone else. I have to quickly finish davening, quickly finish learning. Why? Because I need more hours at work. And as soon as I finish davening, I'm going to go out to the world and be like everyone else. I'll be successful. Why should I be less successful than anyone else? If the Gentile could be successful naturally, doing all the things naturally you have to do to be successful, I'm a really smart guy or lady. More than the next person. Surely I'll be more successful. I may be smarter than the next person. A Jew is not connected to nature. That doesn't belong to us. Nature belongs to Esav. And the world's not interested in you trying to be natural. Don't try to find room on the bench of nature. You want to be successful materially in this world. Look how the Torah tells you should behave. Nissan, you're connected to the month of Nissan. That's above nature. This is how a Jewish person is successful. And this is the lesson. From the holiday of Pesach, the time of our liberation. This is the new year. The idea that we get the energy of miracles starts with the month of Nissan, which is Yitzias Mitzrayim Lei Haisek Kamoya Geula Shlachazei Miparis Imadai Shlachreim Nishru Chelik Nesral B'Galus. When the Jewish people left Egypt, it wasn't like when they left Persia and Medes that some of the Jews stayed in Babylonia, right? Only Ezra came with a few Jews. Whoever was alive left Egypt. Some died in Egypt, but whoever was alive left Egypt. The only difference is how they left. Some people danced out of Egypt. Some people ran from Egypt. They had to run away. They weren't so happy to give up the little bit what they thought was good life of Egypt. They wanted the freedoms of Egypt, no matter, even though that it came with all the difficulties. Right? They said, we remember the fish we ate for free. We didn't have to make a bracha before. We didn't have to give tithings. Whether they wanted to or not, whether they were happy about it or not, they left. The Rebbe says the lesson is like this. Just finish this paragraph. And that we know that the prophet tells us that not the way we left Persia, but the way we left Egypt is how we're going to leave this exile in a miraculous way, in a way of niflois. That then all the Jewish people left. Not one Jew, no matter who you are, you're not staying in Gullus. It's a kol echad Yisrael Yisgal Dinin Melucha, and it's going to reveal our melucha, our kingship. You're going to recognize that you've been chosen from all the nations. We're going to leave this exile, these limitations. The worst is the limitations of our mind. Even if you're going to say, no, don't give us gula, stop talking about Mashiach. We want to be like everyone else. Someone else is talking about Mashiach. Why are you talking about Mashiach the whole time? The prophet says, if you don't force me, because I'll do it with a hard hand as well. Everyone's leaving Egypt. Everyone's leaving the exile. The Rebbe says now, this is the famous blessing the Rebbe gave for all of us when we come out, just like we left Egypt, with a rechush gadol, with abundance of money, both spiritually and physically. He took out a tremendous rechush of rechush means ownership of things. If only in Egypt that we were for 210 years, all the Jews left with gold and silver. Not limam rechush gadol because in this galus, we're 2,000 years in exile. Every Jew's going to walk out fabulously, physically, and spiritually wealthy. Even though when you look at nature and say, person may individually look at their situation and say, how's that going to happen? If Mashiach comes today, I have $5 in the bank or I'm minus in the bank. That's no one's asking you. You're above nature. Kamarum is b'shem Nissan, 2 nuns. Nissan means 2 miracles. Behegdim divrei Gemara, the Rebbe quotes the Gemara. Haraya huna b'chalam, someone who would see the name Huna, which has 1 nun in a dream. Neis nasla, you should know that's a sign you can have a miracle. Chanina, if someone sees the name Chanina in a dream, Chanina has 2 nuns, or Yochanan has 2 nuns, means Nisim nasla. You can have miracles, abundance of miracles. V'chadushei Goddess Marsha, and the famous Marsha says, if you're talking about nun, why did we say Huna? Let's say Aaron also has a nun, Noach also has a nun. V'chanina v'chanan yesh liyashev mishum the Hashem gufa moiral al chanus v'tayva. The word chanina means to get also liberated. V'anunim marim shia benes, and the nun shows that the liberation. Chanina means kind of things will be easier through miraculous way. Nevertheless, we need the dam Hashem nisan k'shlatzu moiral in nes, but the name itself is a miracle. Appears the Nissan whom Neis, Bekivan Shabbatevazu Yesh Beis Nunim, and the name Nissan has 2 nuns. So the Rebbe says, the Marsha asks, why do we say the name Huna? Huna has nothing to do with miracles. Better say Aaron, which is Aaron HaKohen, and Noach means calmness, right? And Menucha. What's the name Huna have to do with the miracle? But that's all that's talking about those names. But the name Nissan definitely means a miracle, because the name Nissan comes from Neis. And there's 2 nuns. So we have to be sure that we're going to have miracles and be above nature. And the Rebbe finishes off and blesses all of us. He blessed us in 1960, and he's blessing us tonight, 5,785 on the night of the 28th, the Koach of Adar. Yitan Hashem Yisbarach, God should bless everyone. And God should give everyone. Chachodesh Nissan said that this month of Nissan, Yachodesh Nissan Shalav Omer Razal, this should be the Nissan that our rabbis have told us. That Nissan Asidin Higoel, that in the month of Nissan we will be redeemed with the final redemption. B'meher b'meinu spilin our time. And thank everyone for joining. Good Shabbos, Chodesh Tov. We're don't forget the message of the Shir is we have royalty. We're above nature. Don't try to be Kachol Goyim Beis Yisrael. Embrace your identity, embrace your Yiddishkeit, embrace your royalty. Laila Tov, everyone, and Shavua Tov. Take care.
Shalom, everybody.
So.
Thank you, Rabbi.